You're just a waiter, aren't you? Todd sneered across the room at the reunion, loud enough for everybody to hear. The second the words left his mouth, laughter rippled through the crowd. I just smiled and said, sure, nice and easy, while slipping a business card out of my pocket. The second I did, the whole room froze up. That line Todd threw at me didn't just hang awkward in the air, it hit the ground like a velvet glove slapped across a face. Soft on the outside, but meant to sting. On the surface, it sounded like some casual jab, but underneath, it was pure condescension. I was balancing a glass of ginger ale at the time, trying to mind my own business, when Todd dropped that little grenade. I swear, for a moment, the whole family just hung there, half chuckling, half sucking in their breath, like they were waiting to see if I'd fire back. It was our annual family get-together, and right on cue, Todd rolled in like he always did, about as subtle as a bullhorn. He had his polished Rolex flashing from under his shirt cuff, his hair slicked back like he'd just finished filming some car commercial, and that same smug voice he always used when he was about to serve up some insult wrapped in fake charm. We were all crammed into my uncle's lake house up in Vermont, one of those old, creaky places that smelled like aged timber and quiet money. The cousins had all made it, some dragging spouses and kids along, and me? I showed up solo, wearing dark jeans and a charcoal wool sweater. Nothing flashy. Nothing screaming for attention. But Todd? He noticed. He always noticed. And this time, he saw his opening. You're just a waiter, right? He fired off, loud enough for the folks at the cheese platter to hear. The chuckles that followed weren't about the joke being funny, they laughed because they thought they were all in on some private joke about how small my life must be compared to Todd, the big-shot venture capitalist who name-dropped cities like they were old drinking buddies. I didn't flinch. Just smiled. Slow and steady. Not fake, real calm. Sure, I said. Then I pulled out my business card. Not the kind you hand out at random. No, this one was matte black, thick enough to feel like a statement just sitting between your fingers. My name stood clean and bold on it, followed by a title, founder and CEO, the Helsian Group. Right underneath that, it said, upscale hospitality concepts. And then? A list of cities that didn't need explaining: New York, Boston, San Francisco, Miami. The hush that hit the room after that? Man, it was something beautiful. Like the way snow falls, sudden, soft, and heavy enough to blanket everything in silence. You could actually hear the ice shifting inside somebody's drink. I didn't say a word. Didn't gloat. Didn't explain myself. Just handed Todd the card, cool as you please, and took a sip from my glass. Todd blinked, his smirk slipping just a little. And then Aunt Lorna, bless her heart, leaned in and whispered, not quiet enough, wait, that Helsian? The one with the rooftop speakeasies and 6-month waitlists? The one that just hit Forbes? Yeah. That Helsian. Todd's cocky little grin cracked right then, and you could see it, that first flicker of doubt. And honestly? That was just the warm-up. I didn't stick around too long after that. After I saw Todd's smirk melt into something closer to confusion, maybe even a little fear, I made the rounds. Gave Aunt Lorna a hug. Chatted a bit with the cousins' kids. Even made small talk with Uncle Don about his vintage snowmobile that hadn't run right since '92. But all the while, I could feel it, the way the whole room kept glancing my way like I turned into something they didn't quite know what to make of. Later that night, I drove back to the lodge I was staying at, a cozy spot I had built a partnership with when we started expanding into Vermont. The place had a big stone fireplace, a staff that knew how to leave you be, and windows that framed the frozen lake outside like a painting. I sat down at the little bar, ordered my usual, and let the quiet wrap around me like an old friend. Right about then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my assistant. FYI, Todd sent an email through the Helsian site. Wants to grab coffee this week. I just stared at the screen for a second. Coffee? With Todd? The same guy who hadn't bothered to text me in 5 years? The same guy who laughed right along with everyone else a few hours ago, thinking I was bussing tables somewhere? I tapped out a quick reply. Just flag it. No response. And that was that. I wasn't mad. Honestly, not even a little. I just learned over the years, when people underestimate you, they're showing you exactly who they are. Not in big, obvious ways either. It's always in the little slips. A tone. A chuckle they think you won't catch. A word they don't even realize stings. So I paid attention. That whole week, I started looking a little closer at Todd's world. Not because I was out for blood. Not yet. Just curious. And lucky for me, my team owed me a couple favors. I'd helped pull some of them out of tight investor jams before, and they were more than happy to return the kindness. Didn't take long to find something interesting. Todd was trying to buy this gorgeous brownstone in Boston, Back Bay, prime real estate. He was telling everyone it was his next big flip. Playing the real estate hotshot even though, truth be told, that wasn't his world at all. I knew the place. Hell, we'd even looked at it a few months back when scouting for our next Helsian project. Turns out, he'd made an offer. But it hadn't closed yet. I got my head of acquisitions on the phone. You see the one on Marlborough Street? I asked. He paused, like he knew exactly where I was going. Yeah. We passed on it last month. Don't pass this time, I said. Go back in. Full cash. A little over asking. Keep it quiet. He didn't ask why. Didn't need to. Just said, got it, and we moved. I leaned back in my chair, smiling to myself. Not out of spite. Not yet. More like satisfaction. Because a man who mocks the word waiter is about to find out just how expensive underestimating me could get. By Thursday, the deal was sealed. Cash closes deals fast, faster than dreams do, that's for sure. Especially when you don't come with contingencies in games. While I sat sipping an espresso at one of our Manhattan rooftops, I signed the closing docs. Just like that, the brownstone Todd bragged about owning was mine. But here's the part one really loved: I didn't move in. I didn't rip it apart for a flip. I didn't even put my name on it. Instead, I handed it off to our design partners, told them to keep it clean and understated. Classy but subtle. Perfect for hosting private tastings and VIP events for Helsian's inner circle. They didn't need to know the backstory. Not their problem. A few days later, Todd threw a little pity post on LinkedIn, something vague about dishonest buyers and the nature of the game. Got about 4 likes and 1 half-hearted comment. That's the game, buddy. I didn't comment. Didn't need to. But oh, I saw it. Meanwhile, I sent a thank you gift to the real estate broker who'd worked both sides of the deal, a nice bottle of aged Japanese whiskey with a handwritten note, appreciate your discretion. Let's do this again sometime. The next ripple wasn't far behind. About a week later, my Boston GM slid a resume across my desk. Regional Operations Director applicant. Solid background. Good references. VP level experience. The name almost made me laugh out loud. Lauren West. Todd's right hand. The one who pretty much kept his whole circus from going up in flames. She was smart. Way too smart for the dumpster fires Todd kept handing her. Guess she finally got tired of holding up the ceiling for him. I didn't chase her. Didn't even reach out first. But I offered her the job. She accepted. Fast. Quiet. Todd wouldn't know what hit him until she dropped her 2 weeks. And by then? Well, it'd be too late to patch the holes. I didn't have to throw punches. Didn't have to raise my voice. All I had to do was move a few pieces across the board. And let the silence do the rest. Todd tried to shrink me down to a title. Waiter. Now he was watching his whole foundation start to crack, and I hadn't said a single unkind word. When February rolled around, we sent out invitations for our private investor showcase. Thick cream stock. Embossed silver letters. Hand-delivered by couriers, the whole 9 yards. Normally, we kept these gatherings small, 20 names max, real players. Quiet money. But this time? I told the team to stretch it a little. Bring in a few new faces. People like Todd. People sniffing around for funding. He had just launched a boutique spirits brand. Artisanal whiskey. One of those startups with slick branding and no actual bottles in stores yet. I knew because he couldn't help but brag about it online. Big pitch meeting coming up. Let's go. We made sure he got an invite. Not from me. From the events team. When he walked into our Manhattan flagship, he came in swinging navy suit, pocket square, even a cigar case tucked under one arm. Todd thought he was about to charm a room full of money. And he was. Just not in the way he thought. I was already there, chatting with a couple of international investors near the atrium. Todd spotted me across the room. Blinked once, twice, you could almost hear the gears grinding in his head. Recognition flickered across his face. Then panic. He made his way over, forcing a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Didn't know you'd be here, he said, voice tight. I smiled easy. Hosting, actually. Welcome to Helsian. And just like that, standing under a chandelier flown in from Verona, in a room packed wall-to-wall with silent judgment. I watched the color drain from his face. The investors in their sharp suits turned their heads, curious. I kept it easy, reaching out like I was just welcoming an old friend into my living room, which, in a way, wasn't too far off. His pitch was scheduled for later that night. I could have pulled it, honestly. Could have cancelled it with one word. But I didn't. I let him have his shot. I stood at the back of the room, sipping a drink, blending into the background, saying nothing. And when the investors glanced my way after his little song and dance, silently asking for a read on the guy, all I gave them was the smallest shake of my head. Nothing dramatic. Nothing rude. Just enough. After that, it didn't matter how polished his pitch deck was. It was already over. When the event finally wrapped up, Todd made a beeline for me. Flustered, looking around like a guy searching for an exit. "What are you doing, man?" he hissed. "You trying to tank me?" I just tilted my head, playing it cool. "Todd, you're confused. I'm just a waiter, remember?" He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but no words came out. He just stood there, stuck in the same heavy silence from the reunion. Only now? The laughter was gone. That's the funny thing about real power. It doesn't need to shout. It shifts the whole room without you even raising your voice. After that night, Todd disappeared off my radar. No calls. No texts. Not even one of those fake good to see you messages people send when they're embarrassed and trying to save face. But somebody else did reach out. My Aunt Lorna. Started off casual. One of those just checking in texts that basically meant, "Hey, I suddenly remembered you exist now that your name's getting passed around fundraisers. Hey sweetheart, just wanted to say, had no idea you were doing so well. We're all so proud of you." Proud. That word sat weird in my gut. Not because I needed it, I didn't. I was way past needing pats on the head. It was because this was the same woman who laughed along when Todd cracked that joke about me. The same one who once told me maybe I should have stayed in school instead of chasing pipe dreams with Helsian. And now she wanted brunch. It didn't stop with her either. Cousins who hadn't bothered to text me in years suddenly had business in the city next week. Uncles who used to call me a dreamer now wanted to pick my brain over steaks and whiskey. Even my parents, divorced, barely on speaking terms, both reached out within days of each other, each acting like the other hadn't already tried. I said yes to none of them. Not because I was bitter. Because I was finally clear. I'd built something real. And they hadn't seen it or hadn't wanted to until it was too big to ignore. But the loudest message wasn't from the ones calling. It was Todd's silence. Word got around quick. Folks whispered about the Marlborough property deal. How it slipped through Todd's fingers at the last second. Then came Lauren's exit. She didn't leave kicking and screaming, she left with a graceful email. But between the lines? You could read the truth. She was getting off a sinking ship. Then his whiskey brand fizzled. Funding dried up. And that summer, when my restaurant group sponsored the big luxury food and beverage summit out in Napa, the same one Todd was begging to get into, I made sure we booked the center pavilion. Right where every serious investor would walk past. His application? We passed on it. Kindly, of course. Sent him a nice little note with a thanks for applying and an offer for some general admission tickets. He didn't show. But I did. And when I strolled past that empty booth where his brand could have been, I didn't feel smug. I didn't feel angry. I just felt, still. Like the air after a long storm. Sometimes, silence says everything. Later that August, I was standing on the balcony at one of our Miami properties, watching the ocean roll in like it always does, steady, indifferent, drink sweating in my hand, city lights blinking out there like little promises. That's when it really hit me. I could have crushed Todd. Easily. One quiet call to a supplier here. A leak to a real estate blog there. Could have buried him under an avalanche of bad press and lost deals before he even knew what hit him. But I didn't. Because that wasn't the point. It wasn't about destroying him. It was about educating him. Not with noise. Not with rage. With precision. A reminder that some people bluff and others build. And eventually, the ones bluffing run out of runway. People like to imagine revenge feels like fire. Burning hot, roaring in your chest. But that's not what I felt. I felt control. Calm. Like I had finally stepped out of the small story they tried to write for me. You're just a waiter, right? That line had rattled around in my head more times than I could count. Not because it stung, but because of what it said about them. How shallow their world was. How quick they were to laugh. How little they understood the value of the work they sneered at. Yeah, I'd waited tables once. Scrubbed floors. Washed dishes until my knuckles cracked. Closed up kitchens at 2 in the morning. I knew the heartbeat of a Friday night service. Knew the weight a good plate of food could lift off a tired soul. That kind of work taught me more about people and about building something real than any business school class ever could. Todd never got that. Most of them didn't. But the thing is, I didn't need them to. Come September, someone dropped the reunion photos into the family group chat. You know the kind, everyone smiling way too hard, arms slung around cousins they barely tolerated, red Solo cups raised like cheap trophies. I almost didn't bother opening them. But I did. And there it was. A frozen moment in time, Todd mid-smirk. Me, standing just a little off-center, a quiet smile tugging at my mouth, the business card halfway between my fingers and his hand. You couldn't hear the silence that followed in the photo. But somehow, you could feel it. Tense. Heavy. The moment everything shifted, and nobody but me realized it yet. Then the messages started rolling in. Uncle Don texted first. Still thinking about the moment you handed Todd your card. Classic. Hope you're doing good. Aunt Lorna chimed in not long after. Next time you're around, we'd love to try one of your restaurants. Maybe that one in Boston? Even my sister, Erin, who'd barely said 2 words to me about work before, sent a message. I had no idea Helsian was yours. You always did keep quiet about your wins. But it was the next one that made me stop and sit with it for a while. My mom. I looked you up today. Your restaurants are beautiful. I'm proud of you. I let her words settle in my chest. Not because I was starved for her approval, I was long past that, but because it hit me how little they had ever really known about my life. Not one of them had asked what I was trying to build. Not one had shown any real curiosity unless there was drama involved, or unless someone like Todd was standing center stage. And now they were scrambling, tripping over themselves to rewrite history. Trying to weave themselves into my story, after years of siding with him. I didn't bother replying to the family thread. Didn't feel like it. Instead, I did something different. I booked a private dinner at one of our first restaurants, the Original Spot. An intimate, tucked-away place where every dish came out like a piece of art, and guests left feeling like they'd just been part of something rare. And I invited all of them. Not out of spite. Out of closure. We reserved the entire mezzanine floor not because we needed all that space, but because I wanted them to feel the weight of it. The privacy. The purpose. Every little detail mattered. Low, warm candlelight. Open kitchen in full view. A soft string quartet tucked away in the corner, playing songs you recognized but couldn't name. They showed up dressed like they were going to a wedding. Todd, true to form, was the last one to arrive. He looked smaller somehow. Tired around the eyes. He gave me a quick, uncertain nod from across the room, the kind of gesture you give when you don't know if you're welcome. I nodded back. They sat around a long oak table, real linen tablecloth, wine already decanting, handwritten menus laid out just so. At first, nobody really spoke. They didn't know what this night was supposed to be. A trap? A flex? A celebration? I let them sit with that uncertainty. When the first course came out, a smoked duck confit with a burnt orange glaze, I stood up, raised my glass, and let the room go completely still. Thank you, I said, slow and clear, for coming tonight. All eyes turned toward me. Even Todd's. I wanted to bring you here, I said, sweeping my hand around the space, because this is my world. The one none of you ever asked about. A few people dropped their gaze, suddenly fascinated by their plates. I built this company from scratch. Started with less than 10 grand to my name, and about 100 rejections to my face. I pulled doubles. Slept in my car once. I waited tables, scrubbed floors, washed dishes, poured drinks, anything to keep the dream alive. And when the first place failed, I built another. And another. I turned my eyes toward Todd. He held my gaze, but there was no fight left in it. You laughed when you thought I was just a waiter, I said, voice steady. And that's fine. I'm not ashamed of that. The mistake wasn't that I waited tables. The mistake was thinking that's all I was. The table stayed frozen. You could feel the truth hanging there, heavy and sharp. This dinner isn't about proving anything. It's about perspective. Because while you all spent years measuring success by watches, titles, and fancy mailing addresses, I was out here building something real. No claps. No awkward laughs. Just silence, the kind that changes the shape of a room. I sat back down. For a long moment, nobody said a thing. Then Aunt Lorna whispered, "This food is incredible." Todd didn't touch his plate. They trickled out slow that night. Murmured goodbyes floated around the mezzanine like apologies. Nobody had the courage to speak out loud. No one asked for a kitchen tour. No one joked about who was picking up the tab. They knew better. Even Todd hesitated at the door, hand tightening around the railing like he was searching for something to say. He didn't find it. But I did. As I handed him his coat, I said, almost casually, "That brownstone you were looking at in Boston?" "Good eye, Todd." He blinked, confused. You? I just nodded, slow and polite. Enjoy your evening, Todd. He walked out without a word. That week, my phone buzzed with messages from cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Not asking for favors. Not trying to ride my coattails. Just, thank yous. Real ones. My niece, Anna, sent the one that stuck with me the most. I didn't know anyone in our family could build something like that. You made me think differently about what's possible. And that's when it clicked. It was never about building an empire for them to envy. It was about quietly shifting the story they told themselves about what someone like me could do. Thanksgiving rolled around, and for the first time in a decade, nobody asked if I was dating anybody. Nobody asked when I was going to get serious about a career. Instead, they asked about restaurants. About design. About the cities I loved. And they actually listened. And Todd? He still shows up sometimes. Still polished, still talking, but different. Softer. He knows now, the room doesn't tilt toward him anymore. It doesn't have to. Because once you show people who you are, really show them, they never forget. I don't think about Todd much anymore. Not out of anger. That burned off a long time ago. Some people? They're just mile markers in your story. They show you where you've been. Not where you're going. What stuck with me wasn't handing Todd that card. It was everything that happened after. The way the room shifted. The way people looked at me differently once they finally saw me for who I'd been all along.